Live. That's also Rudy Giuliani. Well, I hate to start on a really tragic and sad note, but Farmingdale is a community that I know well. I grew up in North Belmore. One of my best friends in life lived in Farmingdale, and I couldn't start without offering my prayers and asking you to do the same. A terrible tragedy occurred with a band from the Farmingdale High School. They were going to a band contest. They're driving across the state of New York. There were 40 members of the Farmingdale band. They were going to a camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania, and at Wawawanda, New York, in Orange County, they tumbled 50 feet down a ravine shortly before 1:20 p.m. yesterday. There was a faulty front tire. At least 5 of the youngsters are in very serious condition in the hospital in that area. A number of others are in the hospital, but in better condition. And tragically, 2 of the adults lost their life. The director of the high school band, Gina Pelletieri, and a retired teacher who was there, to help and to assist, Beatrice Ferrari. 2 very dedicated women, dedicated to the Farmingdale band. They were going there for a band competition. They play in parades, they play in football games, the typical high school band. And these kids, you might want to take a look at that. That bus went flying down the ravine, and it was a faulty front tire, apparently.
Yeah, pull it down a little bit.
Pull it down a little? Sure.
You got it on the screen here, Mayor.
Very good. Perfect, Mayor. Perfect.
Good.
Yeah.
So prayers for the repose of the soul of Gina and Beatrice, and also for the recovery of all of them, the 5 that have been mentioned as being in serious condition, and the others that had to get medical treatment. What a terrible thing. Terrible, terrible thing. Now, some good news, at least from my point of view, good news. The mayor of the 5th largest city in America had a conversion. Now, I could make a joke about Adams, who talks to God. He told us in 1994 he had a conversation with God, and God told him he'd be mayor. Wish God had come back and told him to be Republican, but apparently the mayor of Dallas didn't need a visitation quite that high. He used his common sense. And using his common sense, Mayor Eric Johnson, who won re-election almost unanimously, 98.7% of the vote, whoa, became a Republican. He's at the beginning of his second term. He said, I'm going to finish my term as a Republican. And let me try to give you a few of the reasons why. I think they are national in scope, and they reflect things that we've been saying on this show and on Common Sense and on the Rudy Giuliani show and others like us for quite some time. The Democrat Party, it's no exaggeration, has clearly lost its way. When people say it's not the party of my father or of when I was young, or my goodness, just listen to Robert Kennedy Jr. and you'll find that out. Just listen to him. I mean, he's a reflection of that. And although, you say, well, he goes back to his father and grandfather, he's still a contemporary man. And, I mean, in his case, they're kind of kicking him out. They won't let him run. Imagine not letting a Kennedy run in the Democrat Party. You'd almost think they'd have I wouldn't say a right to run, but sort of like you'd give him a chance, right? Well, Mayor Johnson said, while Dallas has thrived elsewhere, Democratic policies have exacerbated crime and homelessness. I used to say when I was running for mayor, these conditions, and they were as bad or worse than now, not given to us by God, nor are they a condition of the weather. We created them. Incorrect policies. How about insane policies? Or I would say now, communist policies. Every single one of our problems can be traced to a democratic, imposed, autocratic solution, which is an unrealistic solution to the problem. Example, which we're going to start off with pretty soon, the border. This is not happening just because it's happening. It's happening because he has opened the gates. We showed you a picture of that. He actually opened the gates. I don't know if you can do anything more. First, he invited them all in. Then he opened the gates. Then he took away the barriers that Governor Abbott put there. Now he has the Border Patrol helping him come across the border. And in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you one of the things that he's doing, for which I think he should be prosecuted. Or impeached first again, but prosecuted after. He went on to say, after these wins for the people of Dallas, and after securing a 98% vote in my reelection, I have no intention of changing my approach to this job because he's governed like a Republican. Today, I'm changing my party. Next spring, I'll be voting in the Republican primary when my career in elected office ends in 2027. On the inauguration of my successor as mayor, I will leave office as a Republican. While Dallas has thrived, he says, policies elsewhere have exacerbated crime and homelessness. He has a record of bringing down violent crime. Sound familiar? Huh? In every category. And he's lowered property taxes. First year I was in office, I could only afford a small tax decrease because we had a deficit 5 times what had been predicted. And even back then, the press covered up for Dinkins what the actual deficit was. So I had to do major cuts. I literally cut the city about 15%. And, but I had to do a tax cut. As a Republican coming into office, believing very, very much that my future was going to be built on growth, not further taxes. In other words, I was going to take the city out of the deficit it was in through economic growth. Instead of charging, 10% more in taxes, I was going to have 20% growth. So I lowered some taxes. My deputy mayor and best friend, Peter Powers, came into my office when we got it passed. He shook my hand. He said, Mayor, you've just done the largest tax cut in the history of the city. I said, Peter, it was $40 million. How could it be the largest tax cut in New York City? He said, well, it was the only one. We've never had one. Remember, New York City is a city that voted against Abraham Lincoln. That's how insanely Democrat it can be. So he is a champion of law and order. I'd like to see that done in more cities because such a large percentage of our Americans live in cities. Instead of being a laboratory for liberalism, it should be a haven for opportunity and free enterprise. God bless you, Mayor. I can finally look at a mayor. I was saying to people, can you give me an example of a really well-run city and a good mayor and you got one. There you go. Mayor Johnson, thank you, Dallas. Very, very beautiful city, and it's going to get even more beautiful. And maybe this is the start of something big, because if you could get Republican policies into the inner cities of New York, in about 1 or 2 generations, they no longer be inner cities. In fact, if the money the Democrats have been allocating since the Great Society actually got to the people in the inner cities, there wouldn't be inner cities. Don't you realize why it's not happening? I mean, they take it. What shall we call it? A kickback, bribe, graft, stealing, cheating, double-crossing your people. How do they all become rich when they leave office? What's Charlie Rangel doing being worth 27, 28 million from Harlem? Okay. The border is, I'm trying to find a way to describe this without exaggeration. We are in jeopardy of no longer being a country. We have rewritten our history. We are destroying our heroes that made this country because they were human and did bad things, in addition to doing some of the greatest things any human beings have ever done in the history of the world. We attack our population, deplorables, systemically racist, and now anyone can come in. And you know what the goal is. The New York City Council they gave you the goal when they voted last year that non-citizens can vote. If non-citizens can just walk into the United States free of any kind, and they could just vote without any identification of any kind, 3 million Chinese could come in and wipe out any election sent by the CCP. Where's your country? Where's your common set of values, common language, culture? That's what makes a country. A country isn't a name. Country is a common set of values. And it's in that very nationalism that this battle is taking place, because that is what Soros hates and has written about, the evil American nationalism. That's what Obama went around the world apologizing for when the press said it really wasn't an apology tour, even though it began with, "I'm sorry." That's what Biden does every time he calls us systemically racist. Democrats, I don't know, how often, you know, when I was watching the crowds waiting for Biden, his fans, right? I mean, I'm familiar with the Trump crowds. They're usually more American flags than you see anywhere. Ted, did we see one? Did we see a single American flag
Not
in
one.
the Biden crowd?
Not one flag. Not even one. Zero.
I don't think that's by accident.
Well, Mayor, to add to that, how can you say Biden cares about this country when literally 1 hour ago he just gave Ukraine another 325 million while our borders remain open and people flood this country?
And you could say, I mean, the border, another way to describe it is that it's a war. It's an invasion. We're being invaded. Yes, there are people coming across for the reason of wanting a better life, and they're doing it illegally. But they are being used now deliberately by major organized crime groups and major anti-American organizations and enemies, like the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party. That group is being used as a shield. Think of them as a shield. Think of the ones that the silly Democrats, rather than the evil ones, you know, kind of get teary-eyed about. They're coming here because they can't get any food and they can't get any, and they put them on television. And, you know, the guy has just stolen everything from the store across the street, but he looks like he's impoverished. And, you know, he goes and steals a bicycle, but he's really starving. And they make them into these, well, we got to feel so sorry for them. And maybe some of them we should. But that's a deliberate shield that's created to evoke that weakness in us. So then we let massive and record numbers of drug dealers, MS-13, gang members, terrorists, other forms of criminals, deviants, human traffickers, we let them come in. And they're coming in deliberately selected by the Mexican cartels, who get paid. That's how they make their living. They get paid for it. Now here takes it beyond everything, right? So last year, the nitwit in the White House said, we're going to be tougher. We're going to be tougher. We're going to be tougher. Sorry. We will be, read the next line, Joe, tougher. So he decided that if you can't just come in, you just can't come in. If you come in, we're going to arrest you and throw you out and stuff like that. If you want to be a asylee, you have to make an appointment to come in, and only a certain number would be allowed in. So we're under that system now for about half a year, and that system has brought in more illegals than any system ever before, including the completely out of control system he had last year. So not a single newspaper, except maybe the Post, not a single television station, network or whatever, except maybe Newsmax, has the headline, Biden policy, ridiculous failure. But it is. But here's what they're doing, the Post revealed today. They have this program where if you apply, then you come in, you get processed, you come in, they put you on a list for a hearing. Now here's the rub. The hearing is 3 years from now, so now you're here. You're here for 3 years. If past percentages are any guide, only about 4 or 5% are going to come back. So they're here. And they let them come in, but in this case, they let them come in by making an application to come in. Well, not enough people were applying. So apparently, we must have people in these countries now. We're helping them apply. We're helping them apply from those countries. We're helping them apply and making sure large numbers come in. So, for example, by mid-2023, over a 1 year period, we brought in 221,000 people that way from Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, and Nicaragua. And I'm sorry. We brought in about 400,000. The other one I'm talking about is if you have your own money, you can book your own trip. So you can say, I want to go to Buffalo. I want to go to Chicago. I want to go to Los Angeles. I want to go to New York. And then you can go there and get processed there. That we've had over 221,000 people do that. We don't know who they are. They could have just taken a guy out of prison in Venezuela, got him a ticket and sent him here. He shows up in Buffalo and says, I'm politically persecuted. Now we got to give him a hearing and keep him here for 2 or 3 years. In New York, we add to it, we give him a job, we give him lodging as a matter of right. A lot of cities are doing that now. In New York, we want to give him a job. So 3.8 million have entered since he became president. 3.8 million have entered illegally. 3.8. That's in addition to 2.3 million who have been legally admitted. And they count 1.5 million gotaways. Like hell, 1.5 million gotaways. At least 3 or 4 million gotaways. The general rule of thumb is 1 for 1. Been that way when the border was a lot more secure than it is now. It stands to reason the more chaotic it is, the more people are coming in that we don't know about at all. It also stands to reason that since the border is manipulated by the cartels manipulate the high value entries, so we don't find out about them. Now, what do I mean by that? They control the border to such an extent that they can produce 2,000 people, 1,000 people, 80 people, 90 people, whatever the number takes to distract us to come over the border any place they want. They do that, our resources go there. What does that do? Let's think of football for a minute. You bring everybody over the right side of the field. What's open? The left side of the field. Well, these guys are just as smart as any football coach, and they make more money, believe it or not. Well, they leave an opening, and they go right across the Texas border. Point is, it's always been the case. Go ask any expert in this area. The more illegal, the more illegals that are caught, the more illegals that are coming in who aren't being caught, because it distracts our resources and it leaves it open. And one of the reasons for the large entries is to make the more surreptitious entries easier to do. This is not an accident. This is orchestrated by organized crime and by the Communist Party of China. And you want to add one more? ISIS. Over the last year, Joe Biden, among the other homicidal type records that he's created, has had the most people detained at the border for being Islamic extremist terrorists, by large amounts. What does that mean? A large number are coming across that aren't being detected, because for that, the cartels get real money. I mean, they could get 200,000-300,000 a guy.
Mayor, to top it off, cherry on top, Mayor Adams just decided to cut 75% of the NYPD's critical response team, which is the first line of defense, as you know, for terrorism, because he has to. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Dr. Maria. And because he has to make money.
I was about to do that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mayor. But, you know.
Yeah, I was about to explain that.
He did it because the migrants are here. So,
yes.
Yeah, we're giving money to migrants, taking away
he did it. He did it because he doesn't read the newspapers. I mean, he did it because he doesn't read the newspapers. The man is not aware of what's going on around him. I don't think he did it because I think if he had an administration with one intelligent person, they would have said to him, "This is a terrible time to do that, Mr. Mayor. That we have excess number of illegal terrorists coming in right now. My goodness!" And for the last 5 weeks, the newspapers have been filled with articles about how these numbers have gone up. Dr. Maria and I have reported on this on Uncovering the Truth, the piece on this. We've reported on it on the radio show, on here. It is not a secret that there's been an increase in the number of terrorists coming in. Now, what kind of jackass do you have to be to decrease your defenses against terrorism in a city that's the number one target by 75%? That group, by the way, was not created by me. It was created by Ray Kelly, and credit to him that it was. And think of the record they had. I know the record they had when I used to know what went on in detail. They prevented, I mean, a lot of people have said, how come there were no attacks after? But that group has something to do with it. And the other resources we have, all of which have been reduced, by the way. This got big publicity because it's 75%. He's been pecking away at that from the beginning. De Blasio started. And look, it's easy to do that because and this is what happens to us, and this is what the Islamic terrorists count on. If you're not an inspired leader, you just react. So you say, well, I got extra rapes, and I've got extra muggings, and there hasn't been a terrorist attack in a long. Let me take them. Terrible mistake. The threat is there. The threat is real. And this is one of the reasons he's a terrible mayor. It isn't as big as the murder rate or the ridiculous encouraging of people to come here illegally. He created this. Every time you look at it, it wouldn't be this bad if he hadn't been talking about what a great city this is for illegals to come to. It still wouldn't be happening as much if he finally come to the point that these people are illegal and they should not be treated like welcome guests. I mean, they shouldn't be treated inhumanely. I never did, but I never treated them as welcome guests. But he, unlike the mayor of Dallas, he doesn't have the common sense to become a Republican or to figure out the right policies. So I do have to announce, since I announced it on my radio show, and I don't want to keep you guys behind, but sometime in the next, I don't know exactly how long, 3 days, 4 days, we will file a lawsuit against I'm not even going to mention the name, the serial liar who claimed that on January on January 6th in a tent. I touched her and then bent over and put my arm all the way up her leg. In other words, I want you to think about the visual. Here there are people around, and I bend over, and I put my arm up her leg. Like, really? That's about as sensible as saying that the President of the United States jumped out of the back seat of his limo, got into the front seat and grabbed the wheel. This is the same person, and the Secret Service agents made a liar out of her there. And I don't need the Secret Service agents. She can find out what I got. But the reality is, it's time. It's time to fight back. I mean, this is a scurrilous, horrible charge. I don't know what's wrong with the woman, but she should get help. We will take a short break. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnels to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Welcome back. And you just heard the Tunnels to Towers ad. And please, this would be the weekend to do it because this is the weekend of their big run. It's going to be on Sunday, and we were just discussing how we're going to get there in the morning because I have to be back at ABC Studios at 10 for a show and then back for the after the race festivities, although they're going to switch the program this year, and they're going to do the speeches in the morning before the run rather than at noon. So we'll be getting up very early and heading down there. And I've gone every year but one. The one year I didn't go is when I had emergency surgery on my knee. And a little later in the show, I'll tell you the story of how that started, okay? It's kind of an interesting story of how that run started. And of course, the Silla family is an inspirational story that I often tell to people that are facing, well, it's hard to face circumstances like they did, but circumstances similar to what they faced. Gosh, if you want any example of fentanyl, and statistics don't mean anything, because in some ways they don't. I could say 70,000 Americans died last year of fentanyl. And of course that gets you. You feel it. But if I tell you that a couple of days ago, a 1-year-old child died of fentanyl, I don't know, somehow I think that hits you a little harder, right? And the 1-year-old child was at a daycare center, and the daycare center was a front for a fentanyl mill, right next to it. They were lacing fentanyl into heroin, cocaine, marijuana. In the floor below, they had large deposits of or large bags with heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. And the children who were injured, there were 3 that went to the hospital and 1 that died, all inhaled the fentanyl. And Nicholas Felix Dominici died. The others are, I think, I don't know if they're all home. One of them was home and then had to go back to the hospital. The murderers include the woman who runs the center, Gray Mendez de Ventura, her cousin-in-law, Carlisto Acevedo Brito, and Ventura's boyfriend, or whatever the hell he is, who was the real, I guess, head of this. And he hasn't been publicly named yet, and they are looking for him. There have been, and it's been determined to be a homicide. Thank you, Joe Biden. Now, you want to say I'm being nasty with that? This damn thing was on its way to being under control. I know it because I know the program that President Trump used. My son was involved in it. The statistics in the last year were extremely encouraging. The statistics in the last year on illegal immigration were phenomenal, largely because of the agreement that he reached with the president of Mexico to have the people processed there, which, guys, why? I mean, we ask this question about Biden all the time. Why would he change the policy of processing these people in Mexico? Do you have any idea why? Why would he change the policy just because it was Trump's? I mean, it obviously makes sense. It turns out that the people that come over and claim asylum, 90% plus are not entitled to it. So based on statistics, you just a very small percentage have a legitimate claim. You could actually do a much better job of figuring out who they are. I could probably tell you if you just told me the country and the city, particularly if we're talking about the Golden Triangle and places like that. I did a lot of security work there. So this was a brilliant thing to do. You have any idea why?
No, man, I don't. You got it. You're the security expert, so you know.
You don't have any idea why he would do it. I'm going to tell you why. He's doing it because he wants to destroy our country. If you take a look at all the things that are done, and you come up with a central reason for it, the reason is deteriorate the country so that we become one world. We're not proud of being Americans. In fact, America disappears. The goal of communism is to make your nationality disappear. If you've heard of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, that's what it was. The feeling that the Chinese communists had was that the Chinese culture had hung on too much, and they had to get rid of it. So that was a cultural revolution. They did the same thing in Russia in the 1919s and 1920s, and that's what they're doing to us. They are now. They are. I mean, the numbers in Texas are going up exponentially as we speak, which means to New Yorkers who are listening, the conditions you see now are nothing like they're going to be in about 4 months, because I doubt that Abbott is going to stop sending them here. He still takes on a burden, 10 times ours, and we still have the two so-called leaders in New York with a two-part message: don't come, don't come, don't come, don't come, don't come. We love you. You're like the people that came over at Ellis Island. You're just like them. You're really like that. The guy from MS-13 must think it's really hilarious that he's compared to the people that went to Ellis Island, right? Yeah, right. And they came in for a job. You think I want a job? You jackasses. I want to take your property. Or I want to make money off making you into an addict. Or I want to traffic in your kids. You got a nice little girl I can steal and traffic her. What silly people. You know, silly people should not be responsible for the lives of other people. Taking down the statues is a symbol of that. You want to know why do they get so concerned with taking down statues? There was an article written by or maybe it was an editorial by the Post saying that with all the problems we have in New York, what is the New York City Council spending all this time figuring out how many statues should stay and how many statues should go? And I mean, we have a one-year-old kid killed with fentanyl. We've got record fentanyl deaths. We've got one of the highest unemployments in the country. We have unbelievable number of retail thefts. We've got stores leaving 2 a day. We've got a city that's being made fun of all over the world as a dangerous city. And we're worried about whether we should keep a beautiful statue of Christopher Columbus at Columbus Circle. This is what our city council debates. We even have a person called the executive director of the Public Design Commission, Striosi Banaherja. This is her here. I have a picture of her here. They had her in the Post because this is her right. This is Stayoshi. Stayoshi's got about how many on the drawing board? Couple of hundred she's working on that she wants to take. 2,500 pieces of public art, which need extensive research, she said, as part of a complex evaluation process. Not the fact that the reading scores are down 30%. That doesn't need extensive study. Or the math scores 28%. That doesn't need extensive study. Or that we've lost considerably more business than we're taking in. Or that we have a budget deficit that seems impossible to fix, particularly with the added burden of 100,000 illegals to which we are giving twice as much as any other city. Or the fact that when we build anything, it costs twice as much as any other city because we're so crooked. None of that matters. What really matters are the 25 pieces of public art. And she has exactly what maybe you know her and you can let me know, exactly what her credentials are to tell us what the public art should be and not, and what this complex evaluation process is as to whether or not we should have a statue of George Washington. I would like to know that.
Well, Mayor,
I would like to know that.
You know, the Democrats and city council, everything's racist to them. That's their answer. Oh, why can't we have a statue? It's racist. Racist.
No,
racist,
but she's
racist.
going to help us come to terms with our history.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think she has a PhD in history.
What's her name? I'll
Can
figure
we
it
out.
out.
Can we find out if she has a PhD in history?
I'll find out for you.
What are her credentials to help us come to terms with our history? I need a government bureaucrat to help me come to terms with my history. Well, I mean, doesn't that sound like a communist government? Oh, she's also let out that a lot of the 2,500 have to be removed. A lot. A lot means like more than half. Meanwhile, 64% of black students didn't reach an even acceptable score on the math test. 2/3 on the reading test. And you're worried about Christopher Columbus, Peyoshi, and the city council is worried about it. Why don't you just get rid of the job, Adams? You say for now, we're in an emergency. We don't have time to screw around about statues. The statues are going to stay. Okay? We're not going to go do exposés of things that men or women did 800 years ago. Okay? We have a hard enough time figuring out what people did yesterday than figuring out what they did 800 years ago. And we know why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're damn communist. That's why you're doing it. And you're trying to destroy our history. Do you think we're all as uneducated as the poor kids that have to be subjected to the Communist Teachers Union? You think all of us have not read history? You think I don't know the history of communism? You don't think I know exactly what you're doing to my country? You want us to hate our founders. You want us to hate the people who put together the most brilliant Constitution ever written and a Declaration of Independence that shocked and rocked the world. For her figuring out what 2,500 we can keep or not keep. Who gives a damn what she thinks? They don't even tell us her credentials. They just put there that she does it. Very sad. Well, we will be back in just a very few minutes, and we'll talk about Mr. Zelensky.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom, as we know it, has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
Welcome back to Balance of Nature. You want energy? You want to be healthy?
Yes.
You are flooded with all of these supplements and many of them I'm not. Look, you decide which ones you want. You obviously can't take all of them. But if you only take one, Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature gives you the vegetable and fruit supply that you need. And remember, this is where a lot of what you're getting out of the other stuff comes from, except you're getting it in a more powerful way, the way it's processed. And you take Balance of Nature every day, you'll be fine. You'll have tremendous energy. It will work to help increase your immune system. And you'll see a difference. It depends on the person. 2-3 days, a week, 2 weeks, depends. Really depends on the person. We all have different. I wish Dr. Maria were here. She'd give me the right word. It isn't immunity, but it's sensitivity level in medicine. For example, this is true since I was a child. My pediatrician told my mother this. I need a higher dose of a medicine than somebody else would. So when he would prescribe a medicine to me, he would up the dosage a little because I have somewhat of a resistance to it. Whereas other people, like her, for example, she reacts to medicine like that, which means she'll even have symptoms from it that I might not have. And so I always take, unless the doctor tells me not to, I always take two. I always take two. And if it's a new doctor, I tell him this so that he knows how to prescribe properly for me if I need an antibiotic or whatever the heck you need. But these things are just great. I mean, I've been taking it for quite some time now. And and this is a high energy person, me, with more energy, which is scary. That's why they look tired. But I don't put them on the air because they look tired all the time. They sit here, sometimes they're sleeping.
Not once.
Not once, Mayor.
Not once.
I have 2 cold brews a day.
I know.
600
Come on, I'm
milligrams
just.
of
Look, I
caffeine.
have my list of podcasters and live streamers that I recommend to friends if they want to get to sleep. You know who's never on that list?
What?
Mayor Giuliani.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay awake on a long car drive, throw on Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
You know
right?
what we should do? We should see if we could get an advertiser, a podcast advertiser, who advertises as putting you to sleep.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And we could say, you know how they have. I think my friend Huck does an ad for a sleep supplement. I actually use it sometimes because it's Huck. But maybe we could do our own, and instead of taking the medicine, you put on Joe Bacigalupi.
Yeah.
Joe Bacigalupi has a great podcast. It goes on at 11 until 4 in the morning. Guaranteed in 4 minutes you go to sleep.
Or you can watch Joe Biden speak some. Like,
No,
couple
you'd
words.
laugh too much.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Wouldn't I mean that guy? The problem with Biden, and I am glad because I've started to talk to people about this. A lot of people react this way. I used to feel very guilty. Like at first, when Dr. Maria and I were covering him during the campaign, we would laugh. We'd look at each other like, "Well, this is not right. He could be president." And then he became president. That's not right. You shouldn't be laughing. Look, give it up. You can't help it. The guy, I still have never seen another guy fall going upstairs. I mean, I'm sorry. You seen somebody fall going up the stairs?
No, but Mayor, he shook hands with the flag the other day. You can't make this up, Mayor. I mean, what's
I didn't
going on
see
here?
that. Come on, is that true?
He was talking with the Brazilian president, and the Brazilian president went to go shake his hand. He turned around and shook hands with the Brazilian flag.
Was he trying to be respectful?
With the flag.
Ted, we got any good ones? We got any good ones? It is a Friday. We should have a little fun on Friday.
Yeah,
We have any good ones?
videos.
I thought Dr. Maria had some.
We got to get some. Let's see. Give me a few minutes. We'll try to.
We'll find.
I know. We got a couple. He did a couple of things recently.
Recently, vote for Joe. Yeah, give me a few.
I think they're hiding him.
Yeah,
I think they're hiding him too much.
we got one coming up there.
So Zelensky got a little bit of a boot in the ass this time. They wouldn't let him. I think he thinks that now that he comes here, he can address Congress all the time.
They just gave him $325 million an hour
Yeah,
ago.
but if you look at him, he looks a little disappointed.
Because
look,
he didn't get billions.
No, he wanted to address Congress again.
Stop.
Look,
Mayor, come on.
he wanted to address Congress again. I'm telling you. Yeah, I'll show you. Look, McConnell and Schumer. It looks like McConnell and Schumer are showing him out. Look.
Or it looks like they're very happy to see him.
No, it looks like they're trying to get him out quick before he doesn't get all the money he wants. How much did he get this time?
$325 million as of an hour ago.
I see. And we have no controls on that. Like we don't
No,
audit
Biden
it.
just signs off like a blank
Yeah,
check.
normally, when we do this, we put in a controller. You know, Biden refused to do it from the very beginning for him.
Of course.
I wonder why.
His son has business
I
dealings,
wonder
perhaps.
why.
Hunter is a consultant.
You know, I think Zelensky must not know about Biden's massive corruption in Ukraine. He's just the president. So how would he know about all the bribes that Biden was involved in and all the crooked things that Hunter did, Biden's son, that you could squeeze Biden with? He would never know that, would he?
No, Mayor. I mean,
Nor would he know a lot about money laundering, even though his number one contributor and his patron is the number one money launderer in Ukraine. Why do they never mention that Kolomoisky is the guy who made him, who bankrolled his campaign, made him a television star, and is one of the 2 or 3 biggest crooks in the country? Why do they not mention that?
Mayor, because I believe they don't want to, Hunter Biden was an energy consultant there. So,
Well, because they want us to. This is like the propaganda in the First World War.
Right.
He's got to be all good, and Putin's got to be all bad.
Right,
Now,
right.
Putin is pretty damn bad. Nobody is gonna tell me that Putin isn't bad, but don't tell me this guy is a saint either. I know too much. He knows everything about his crooked country. And the tragedy here is we're not doing any favors for the people of Ukraine by letting a lot of this money go to hell.
Well, Mayor, I'm a little
We
confused.
never have.
I see videos of Ukraine right now, present day, in the capital and whatever. People are at clubs, they're partying, everything looks great. I'm very confused with the war. What war are we paying for? Can you tell me?
There's a real war going on. I was there. It's worse than it was when I was there. But when I was there, the last time I was there was in 2015. I think, yeah, right before the presidential campaign. December of 2015, I think, was the last. Well, not really. I went there secretly.
Just kidding.
I'm a private citizen. It's not classified.
You weren't there.
You don't have to put me in jail for classified material, and I never showed it to the communists like Joe Biden did. And it wasn't classified anyway. But I snuck into. You know what got me really PO'd? When Brian Kilmeade put Shokin on and pretended like this was some kind of an exclusive interview with Shokin. When I was the first one to interview him 3.5 years ago, and here's the part of it that makes it malicious. First place I discussed it was on his network with Hannity. Hannity was the first, from their point of view, to reveal it. All the detail. Not only that, between me and John Solomon, and eventually OAN and Chanel Rion, we got a lot more out of him than he did. He got like a little bare bones classic comic book description of what happened. We have a 1.5 hour, 2 hour tape you can introduce in evidence at a trial. Podcast number 3. You should know. I'm organizing all 300 of my podcasts so that you can go find them. If you go to my podcast and you get the right numbers, you get a complete history of Ukraine. You get a complete history of the pandemic. You get a complete history of China's infiltration. All different podcasts. You'll see all the stuff that's coming up now, right? And they're going, oh! I don't have all of it. Got about half of it. But much better than they do, because with a podcast, I had the time to really explore it. And after all, I'm a much better investigator than they are. They're just reporters. I mean, like, none of them put Nazis away. None of them put mafia people away. None of them put Wall Street away. I mean, every time they do an interview, I say to myself, why did you leave that out? Why did you leave that out? Why didn't you follow that up? Why didn't you do that? And none of them have taken my course on cross-examination. And what I don't like is how they make believe. Please don't make believe. Huh? And also the New York Post. The New York Post is the one who put out the hard drive. The New York Post. I gave him the hard drive, and Bob Costello. Not only did I give him the hard drive, I had to hold their hand to publish it. If it wasn't for Miranda Devine, it wasn't for Miranda and Emma and John Levine, who you see wouldn't have gotten published. Wouldn't have gotten published. The Wall Street Journal wouldn't publish it. Same. And Fox wouldn't play it. They play little excerpts eventually after the Post got slammed for it. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the Post, because without them, it never would have been published. And maybe I would have gotten it out on alternative online broadcasts like this, but we'd be way behind. So I'm not doing this in any way to take anything away from what they did, but they've taken everything away from what I did, just because they hate Trump. Because we used to be pals, the Post and I. Fox and I used to be big pals since I put them on television when nobody else would. But now they hate me because I happen to think, I'm sorry, I paid a much bigger price than the New York Post for this. Happen to believe that Donald Trump is an innocent man who has done a great deal for his country, and at this point is the only one who can turn this terrible situation of our becoming an authoritarian fascist government around and do it quickly. You know, I thought DeSantis lost it, Ted. I always talk to Ted about DeSantis because he's a very, very big DeSantis supporter. Even when I introduced him to President Trump,
I think he donated to
I had to tell him.
DeSantis.
I had to tell President Trump, don't say anything bad about. Don't do the sanctimonious thing. The poor kid will cry. The fact is, the day I met him, well, not the day I met him, but the day that we started our collaboration together, he said, "You don't think DeSantis is going to win, do you?" Oh God.
That's right, Mayor. Right?
I was like, "Oh God! Oh my God!"
Yeah. And we were on the same page early on.
You were ahead of me.
Okay.
I was a little bit more. I don't know. I'm worried about him because I told you I'm worried about him. Here was my position. Yeah. He was a good governor, terrible candidate. Yeah. You felt he was an exaggerated governor, and a terrible candidate. Not a terrible governor, but his achievements as governor were exaggerated, and a terrible candidate. We were both right about his being a terrible candidate, except he was worse.
That's probably both. That's right, Mayor. But I want to correct something. There's no way I was ahead of you on that. When it comes to American politics, ain't nobody ahead of the mayor when it comes to politics in America. So, but that's right, Mayor. From early on, we both saw through that.
No, but we saw the same ending. We just saw it in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And although aren't you surprised he collapsed quite this much? It's more
this fast.
It's
right?
more than we thought, don't you think?
Yeah.
A little more than we thought.
Quicker than we thought too.
Particularly with the money he had.
With the money he had and the support of a lot of the media, even the right wing, even our so-called media, right?
Yeah.
I was surprised by how much a lot of them were like. They were getting ready to jump off the Trump train. You know, they were waiting, but the president, he didn't allow them to because he kept his power.
So I lost a primary, so I'm not hardly going to gloat, but I got through a couple of primaries. This is more like Walker. Didn't Walker?
Yeah, he skizzled fast in 16.
Didn't Walker go out before the primaries?
Well before the primaries. About this time in the 16 cycle.
But he was the number. He was like
top three.
For a while, he was the guy that was going to beat Bush.
Yep, him, Bush, Rubio, right? Those were the early top three, if you remember.
But Rubio lasted a little, to his credit.
He did.
And until somebody looked at his hands or something.
Yeah.
He looked at somebody's hands.
Oh, yeah. He criticized Trump.
Did Trump make fun of his hands, or did he make fun of Trump's hands?
That's actually a good question. I do think it was Rubio first, and I think Rubio is doing it because I'm sure some consultant told him, pull a Trump-style attack. Right? Do something like that.
You can't do that.
Rubio can't do it.
DeSantis tried that.
Yeah.
DeSantis did a little of I'm Trump. I can be tough.
Yes, he's been copying Trump
for
a while.
The guy, I'm taking nothing away from the guy. The guy's in the military. He can be a tough guy, but that it's not his persona. It's not
Bingo.
He's more of. I mean, despite his background in the military and everything else, the guy's somewhat more of an intellectual, and he should be that way.
Yep. Harvard,
that kind of works. A lot of people don't like it. I like it. I like issue wonks. I used to like Clinton for that reason, not other reasons. I used to love to talk policy with Clinton.
Well, you read so much, Mayor. You are the mayor.
You have no idea that I had a very good working relationship with Bill Clinton. And I have a letter I got to dig up somewhere telling me I was the best mayor in America.
We got to get that.
Yeah.
We got to find that.
That was for helping him get the crime bill through, which Biden has now rejected. It's the only bill anybody can think of that he worked on. And
Yeah,
he's
but he doesn't
rejected.
remember. He doesn't remember.
No, that's the good part. He has no idea what he did, and he has no idea that the stupid idiot didn't listen to people when they told him he should amend it when it was starting to get applied incorrectly. Which whoever thought he'd be president? I got to tell you, when I first met him in 1981, if you told me this goofball would be president of the United States, I'd have laughed at you. And then for years, people would think I was exaggerating when I would say he's the dumbest man I know. And I would emphasize it by saying, I'm not just saying in Congress. I mean, think about your friends, your relatives. You probably have a few dumb ones. He's dumber.
Mayor, right? Look back to the 1988 presidential election.
But when he got
I
caught?
thought- when he got caught, I wasn't allowed.
Plagiarizing Neil Kinnock's life?
All the nighttime shows were ripping on him. Ted Koppel,
Well, you know what was unusual about that? Plagiarism is usually you take somebody else's article, right? And it happens in law reviews. They take he did this in law school. He took a law review article, stuck it in his article, and never cited it.
Yeah.
Now, law review articles have more citations than they have text.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to cite it. Okay, that's cheating and that's bad. Anybody who does that, I don't know, maybe you should be thrown out or you should be penalized and given another chance, whatever. Yeah. He plagiarized a life. It's not as if he took the words of his speech that applied to him and used them. He took the words of his speech that applied to somebody else's life and applied it to him. I don't know if you realize, I mean, I realized it then, and so did several reporters.
Yes.
Who said this shows a kind of pathology that's deeper than just being the usual political liar.
Yeah.
So he said, I come from a family of a long line of coal miners. Our people didn't see the outside of a mine until whatever. I am the first one that was fortunate enough to get a university education. Several of our people died in the mines, and he's going on like that. And here I am at the pinnacle, running for President of the United States, Prime Minister of England. Kinnock was running for, Kinnock won. All of a sudden, he shows up making the same speech. Unfortunate for him, of course, no dumb American reporter would pick this up. There was a guy from Britain covering him. A guy from Britain covering him and gee, it sounds an awful lot like, could it be possible these guys have the same life? I just heard this 6 months ago in Manchester. Let me take a look at this. So he looks at it. You get somebody to help him. So let's start off with the fact that nobody in the Biden family ever worked in a mine, except one uncle who was an accountant for a mine company. It's a little different than working in the mine.
Yeah.
Keeping the books of the mine company are a teeny bit different. Number two,
for the mine company.
he did say he was the first one to go to university in his family on a scholarship. Number one, he wasn't. He was like the seventh. And number two, he didn't have a scholarship because he got left back in the third grade. Guys get left back in the third grade generally don't get scholarships. And there were a couple of other things about Kinnock's life that he plagiarized, and that got him. And then they looked at it more carefully, and they found that he plagiarized in law school. He was suspended from law school for plagiarizing. And then they went and compared his speeches to Bobby Kennedy. There is a great tape that we're going to get for next week, Ted, where they play the Bobby Kennedy speech against him.
Oh, we do have that.
And he's saying exactly the same thing as Robert F. Kennedy's father, which I think is hilarious since he won't give the kid, the guy's my age. I think of him as a kid. He won't give him.
What does that say?
I don't get not giving him Secret Service protection.
That's disturbing.
Now, I have to admit, I kind of have a soft spot for him.
For the Kennedys.
Well, because I had a big admiration of his dad as a kid. And I think a little bit of the pursuit, believe it or not, people think the mafia pursuit is because I'm Italian. And I think it had a little bit to do with Robert Kennedy. One of the things I'm proudest of is George Bush defended me when I went after the Teamsters, and with the help of Joe DeGeneva and Randy Mastro, we brought a RICO case against the Teamsters, and which I don't know if you realize it was, crazy at the time. We went into court and we said, throw out the people who run the Teamsters Union, and judge, let's appoint an independent board, and let's get them the hell out of Las Vegas. Let's get them the hell out of the mafia, and then let's give it back to them when we fixed it. We proved our case. They gave us our board. 10 years later, we fixed the Teamsters. What happened is the Teamsters switched parties. They used to be the party of Nixon, the party of Reagan. They became the party of Clinton, the party of Democrats. And I got blamed for it. And a number of members of Congress asked that I be fired, asked Ronald Reagan to fire me. All of the heroic Republican candidates for president kind of agreed, with the exception of one person. Who was that?
Joe Biden?
No, Republican candidates.
Republican candidate. Oh.
What all the Democrats want, they didn't want me fired. They wanted me shot, like they do now.
Oh.
Democrats have always hated me because I'm effective.
True. You actually do your job.
I show them up. I show them like the mayor of Dallas wants to be a Republican because the only examples of mayors who do a good job are Republican.
I saw the mayor of Dallas is an African American, so I'm only wondering when they're going to start calling him a white supremacist and stuff because he's a Republican. I'm just waiting for it to come because I know, like they did to Larry Elder. He's a white. Tough guy. He's a white supremacist.
It's like Larry. You know what it's going to mean to him? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for showing me you're a racist.
Exactly. Correct.
No, wait. What
So
was
who's the
question?
presidential candidate?
That's what I'm stuck.
This all happened during the 1988, 1989 Republican primary for the open seat because Reagan was resigning.
So you had HW running, obviously.
Kemp.
Kemp. Who was the
Dole.
religious? Was Robertson running?
Yeah, Dole.
Robertson, Dole. Was there a black Republican then, or no? Not in '88.
Not that I can remember.
That might have been in you know who I'm thinking of, the black Republican.
Yeah.
But no, he wasn't there. Okay. Now what's the question?
Who defended me the most? Who said to Ronald Reagan, he shouldn't be fired, he's doing the right thing?
Pat Robertson?
Bush.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Not only did he say that, he said he is just carrying out what Robert Kennedy began.
Wow.
You know how proud I was of
I
that?
was going to say.
Took me back, and I was a Republican now, and I was sort of anti the Kennedy policies, Teddy's policies, although I like Teddy too. I helped him get Breyers on the appellate court from my little position as chief of staff with his chief of staff, Ken Feinberg. But I think I can put aside my little soft spot for the Kennedys. I think what they're doing to this guy is outrageous. When you make security decisions, if you can't take the political hat off when you make security decisions, get the hell out of office because you're going to get people killed. I don't know that any legitimate presidential candidate with 3% of the vote, and the guy's got 20% of his party, has ever been turned down for Secret Service protection. I don't even know you have to do much research to figure out that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. probably could use Secret Service protection. There isn't some nut here that wouldn't, I don't even want to spell it out. If I hated the Kennedys, and I don't think I hate anybody. Well, I don't think I hate anybody. I am enormously resentful. I'm really resentful of the people that put this guy in the White House because he's had too many people killed. This guy has resulted in the death of too many innocent people for us to be calm with this. Think of all those people in Ukraine that would be alive today if Trump had been president instead of him. Think of all those people in Afghanistan that have been killed. Think of all the fentanyl deaths. I mean, people have to some point realize that public office is not a joke. It's not a game. You put an incompetent in, then you put a demented person in, then you put a crook in, people die. But Kennedy should get protection. Of course he should get protection, even before the incident happened. God willing, nothing will happen. Ted, Mike, I don't understand this guy. He leaves me actually at times bewildered as to how you can be that evil. Like with when he was dealing with his granddaughter, and his wife, who must be also pretty evil, would put out 6 Christmas stockings, but not the one granddaughter they're rejecting. What do they want to destroy her for life?
Sick man, real sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, where's the humanity, right? It seems like
And
such
then-
an
and then
unnatural
the polls-
thing to do.
There was a poll today saying that the Trump family, now they think he's crooked and they don't think he should be president, and they actually support Trump by 2%.
Yeah.
But they think the Trump family's more dishonest.
And that just shows the power of and the influence of the media on society. That's what that tells me. Because anyone, and not everyone, say what you will about why people don't read up on these things. Not everyone understands, right? They can't even name any of the kids, right? For either of them.
Like if I said Shokin, they wouldn't know what I was talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. So a lot of Americans, but what they do know from just years now,
They
at
get
this point-
pounded by the
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
pointing at my television.
Yeah, of general headlines, of general, boom, Trump tonight, shocking, unprecedented. So they have this, without even consciously knowing it. Oh yeah, the Trump family. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's something up there. They don't even have a real opinion on it, right? But visceral reaction, and that has built. You know this, Mayor, more than anyone. It's built up over 7 years now. But why? So we have that question for you. You've seen this before, maybe not to this degree.
No, I haven't seen this before.
But you've been, you're experienced in American politics at the national level for decades. Very few people have the experience you have, and the
That's
background.
because I'm so old, but that, yeah.
No, it's not just being old, right? It's what you've done, who you worked with, right, in your experience. How do you combat that, right? How can you overcome that?
So, I mean, I certainly don't have the only answer to it, but I think this is the way to combat it. And by this, I don't just mean me. I mean me and Sebastian Gorka, Joe Pagliarulo, and
Pags.
and Pagsy, the heroic guys on Newsmax. You know how much I love Greg Kelly, right? Yeah. If we could take Greg Kelly and reproduce him and stick him in every city in America, we'd change this whole thing in a second. He could take on the entire press corps in every city if we had Greg Kelly there. But there's a group, and I have thought of, because I think of it this way. I think of it as a large wall of censored press, just like Pravda in the Soviet Union, just like the news agency that Hitler had. And they're going to put out, Biden is fine, Biden has great policies, everybody's lying. They're going to take all these people, like this woman who says that Trump jumped over and that I, bent all the way over in front of people and stuck my hands up a dress. I'm going to tell you, that's outrageous. That is outrageous what she did. And that one I can't let pass. But okay. So there's then this group, which includes us, our little operation, the other little operation, somewhat bigger, but compared to them, they're Goliath and we're David, right? But now when I conceived of this? I conceived of this when Steve Bannon and I were blocked with the hard drive and only the Post would do it. And again, I tell you, I thank the Post very much for doing it, but it wasn't enough. And I couldn't get on television. So we went around them. I thought of it as, here's the wall. There's their wall. I'm going to go around that way, and I'm going around that way. And we went on local television, and we went on places like OAN that have the guts to tell the truth. And by the time we got to the election, fortunately for history, we reached 50%. And we got before enough legislatures. So we got about 100 witnesses under oath or on record. But unfortunately, we didn't get to the major media because he never would have been president, because our attorney general, for reasons that nobody seems curious about, hid the hard drive for a year while 51 of his colleagues who had been distinguished intelligence officers said that I was a Russian pawn, and therefore the hard drive was illegitimate, when in fact the hard drive revealed about 60 or 70 provable crimes by the Bidens, and he knew that. He just kept it concealed, like an obstruction of justice. That's when I realized that there was something seriously wrong with Bill Barr, that he's not really a legitimate person. There's no way in the world that an attorney general would hide that when the presidential candidate is lying on national television. He says that Trump has information that's Russian produced and that I'm a pawn of the Russian disinformation campaign. He knows about the hard drive. He knows it's been validated. He knows it's true. They all do. And they write a letter supporting him so he can say that. And these are the people who have been giving American presidents, from Bush to Biden, intelligence. You wonder, now maybe it sheds a little more light on the weapons of mass destruction, or a little more light on Benghazi, or a little more light on why they fixed things for Hillary, because, man, she could bury all of them. And she would. You don't think Hillary would rat? Ooh, Hillary's spending no time in prison.
Well, Mayor, we're well into soccer time.
Okay,
what are
we're
your
in
final
soccer time.
thoughts for
My
everyone
final
for the
thoughts
weekend?
are we are considering a new show that's going to come up pretty soon, which will be America's Mayor Confidential. And we're working with Twitter to see if we can get it on. It'll allow us to go into depth on a few things that are a little bit more sensitive. And but we'll give you more details on it next week. Please keep in touch with us. Let us know what you're thinking. This is a very sensitive period of time. This weekend, Dr. Maria and I will be on Uncovering the Truth at 10 on Sunday, in between the T2T, Tunnel to Towers run, which I was going to tell you I initiated at the request of Frank Miller. And my first action to it, when my chief of emergency services came to me, was, we can't do the run because we're too busy. And then Frank came to see me, and in 2 minutes he turned me around. And since then, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, I've been with him every step of the way. Great organization, T2T.org. Send your money in, $11 a month. You can't do anything better. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and God bless the United States of America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world. the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.